recording. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all. The most resonant statement to this group. So we have to act on approval. It should say, I think, to approve the draft minutes and then with the dates specifically. So Alex, do you happen to have, I have the dates. So do I have them? I think we need to do them. It's 3 different dates: October 26th, November 5th, and November 17th. I think just to make sure we have it right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 26th?
I move we approve the minutes from November 26th.
All right, so Gina, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
All right, so Doug seconds that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, any
Aye.
discussion? Any discussion of this? Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Any noes? Any abstaining? Okay.
Nope.
So moved. The minutes from October 26th are approved. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from November 5th?
Make a
motion.
All right, so Tamisha has moved to approve the minutes from November 5th. Is there a second?
I second.
Second, Sonia.
Okay, Sonia Narcisse has seconded. Any discussion from the November 5th minutes? Or any discussion to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? And just for purposes of edification for the public, the minutes are being approved, Naomi, so you know, by the official task force members, of which there are 11, and then any special guests here are just here listening, even though they've been active participants in it. We just need the official task force members to sign off. So now we have the approval of the November 17th minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from November 17th?
So moved.
Say a name.
Sonia.
Sonia has made a motion to move. Is there a second?
Gina.
Tina seconds the motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? The motion carries. The minutes from November 17th are approved. And here we are at our December 3rd meeting. Do we have any, when I ask for updates, I'm not specifically referring to any phone conversations you've had from our last meeting, but any sort of more broad. Gina, is there anything you want to add at the beginning?
No.
Okay, any broad updates from the group, from the task force members, not specific to any phone calls you might have had relative to our charge, but more broadly?
I just wanted to quickly update that I have gone into,
Oh, Alex, okay.
Alex got into the website earlier today and uploaded a document or two, finished the mission. So I just wanted everyone to know that I'm in there now. And as such, we'll continue to get more clarification as to which documents, along with Ryan, should go on and which are appropriate to go on, and the proper protocol. So I just wanted to let everybody know that.
That's great, because I think what's going to happen, and Steve Bogan, who's not, I don't see him here yet, but he brought this up as something that we, he's eager to have it also be more robust as a repository for information. So perhaps we could even have that on as an agenda item for next time, some of what we want to add to the website. So I will, if you're all in broad agreement, we can add that to the agenda which I can do if I have a working pen. Will be to specifically talk about the website. And one other thing that Steve may bring up when he comes on and joins us is this idea of what do we do with some of our early findings? And so I want to bring that up later today, and perhaps we can do that under new business. So I've made a note to myself. Anyone else from the task force members that they want to update the group on?
So anything, I wanted to just run something by the group. I have scheduled 5 calls on Tuesday for the interfaith group. It's with Rabbi Schultz, David and Vanessa, Alita. Is there anybody else that I need to reach out to for this? Any of the other members think that I need to reach out to someone else? Please let me know.
All right,
Evan, Rabbi Evan
Schultz.
Schultz.
I have that.
I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Sure.
And you have obviously Vanessa.
And if we could take, sorry, if I could not choke on myself. If we could table this until we get to item number 6, if I can do Roman numerals.
That's fine.
Just after the updates, because I think we'll want to get into the updates of where people are on these phone calls with the research plan. So, and we can follow up and get into more depth about either how the calls are going, or is there anyone in the community at large, Kathy, Jamie, Dan, anything you have, Patrina, Loretta, anything that you guys want to offer up, any updates, any comments, any questions from the public?
Yeah, I had a few comments. I'll be quick in case it's not really relevant, but I'm thinking in terms of the listening, and I imagine someone will be talking to the police. And
That's
I know
Steve
that
Bogan.
the contracts that the town makes with the police union, it'd probably really good to be familiar with that. And also, how did that change when that, Connecticut passed the police reform bill? So that was something that I thought might be good to have familiarity with before listening goes on, because people might have, comments or experiences with that. And then the other thing was that I was thinking the other day, because since, George Floyd's murder, before that, Ferguson, I have just learned so much with all the film recommendations, books and workshops. And I'm currently in a anti-racism course with Rabbi Friedman that
It's amazing,
from
isn't it?
Israel. That's really excellent. And so I'm wondering also, when the listening's going on, it would be interesting to hear from people what they've learned or how they've changed through these kind of just a wealth of new experiences that we have and resources.
Jamie, it's a really good segue into when we get into the sort of deep listening qualitative phase that we're in. And I want to bring up the points you've made. So I'm going to, if I could, just put a pin in your comments, because you bring up several good points, including this idea that, one thing we had talked about that Karen had brought up, and Karen may or may not be able to join us tonight. She had something going on at home. When a member of the task force or an ad hoc member participates in something like what Temple Israel is doing with Rabbi Friedman, which I've just gotten excellent reports on, or the Conference of Municipalities, CCM, had done some trainings. Innie, I know, had thrown in her hat at some point to attend some things. I think we need to have a forum for reporting in on those kinds of, whether you've gone to a conference and I don't know how to best do that. So maybe that's something we can also talk about, like what the reporting mechanism is. Or is it simply a pin board on our website? Maybe that also comes as part of our website discussion. one, making notice of those things so people can be aware of any activities that are happening, like these conferences, like the racial bias training or the anti-racism training at Temple Israel in Westport, so people can be aware, but also then what is that mechanism for reporting in? So the group has, so people that can attend can have a summary of it. So maybe there's some sort of like template, like a paragraph that people could fill in. So I'm gonna also add that as an item for discussion. And again, we can go back to it at new business, under the new business category. In terms, does anyone else from the public at large, ad hoc members, do you have any questions, other comments? And Jamie, we're gonna circle back to what you said.
I just have 2 points, two questions.
Yeah.
One was I was curious as to whether we as a group do any, and I think maybe this comes under the press conference, or the press release, I'm not sure, but reaching out to the community to say what we're doing, kind of like the Fairfield Equity Coalition does their newsletter. I'm wondering how we tell people that we're working on all these things so that it
Right.
doesn't all of a sudden just appear out of
Yeah.
nowhere that, oh, here's a decision or here's a recommendation or something. So that was one thing.
Ironically, right after our meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago, the reporter, the key reporter from the Citizen, and I don't know where else he's from off the top of my head, sorry, Josh, reached out and did an article on the task force.
Okay.
He was sort of our target for a press release, so we had nice coverage in the Citizen, but like that, Ryan and Alex, if you saw that piece, it would be a really good thing to post. We should have a press tab on the website, and we should add that, to your point, Kathy, so that people can look on the section of the website on the town, and when they go under the task force, they'd be able to see the kinds of things we're doing.
Right. Do
I
task
think-
force ever reach out actively? Like,
I mean-
because that involves somebody going to the website and finding that information.
Yes, but at the same time, you have to be wary of people having to find the people. So,
Got it.
through what avenues? One thing that would be obvious is through press. Well, we just did an article, so there's nothing more to do in the sense of the person that would cover it just covered it.
Mhm.
So occasionally we should be checking in when there's like a milestone thing,
Mhm.
or an event or a milestone happening or an update. We should absolutely reach out to Josh and have him do an interview. And we're trying to spread the love. Last time, I think they spoke to Jason and Steve and Gina and Karen. And next time,
Okay.
maybe it will be another group.
Great.
So that different people are having an opportunity to speak on behalf of the task force. In terms of reaching out, absolutely. That's why our networks become key. I was on a call with the racial equity students at Ward yesterday, and I was on their agenda. So it was an opportunity to give an update of what we're doing and to, again, amplify and push out. And we have to keep continually using our networks and getting in front of people at any opportunity. Absolutely. I think as we're doing this deep listening, these phone calls, it's an opportunity to make ourselves heard in the community. Like teachers at Ward now have heard from us, and the police department and all these various entities. And Innie's going to be talking on Tuesday to 5 different constituencies through the faith group. So that's the way we push out, is just by doing and staying active, engaged. Gina, I don't know if you want to add to that or if anyone has thoughts.
And I was wondering about like the town social media. Like, how does that work? I'm not familiar with it really,
Yeah.
but I think some people do follow the town social media. Is it unusual to have like the task force send information to whoever runs those accounts?
One thing we can do is ask Brenda, our first select woman, to include an update in her weekly Friday missive to the town. She does a weekly update, and if someone is interested in typing up a couple sentences, I'm happy to submit it to her, not for tomorrow necessarily, although we could if someone is willing to turn it around overnight. But for next Friday, we can ask if she would put something as an update. But I think we don't want to we have to have something to say. But in terms of
think
the
it's
social media, yes, but again, what is it that we're saying? We have to make sure
Well, at this point, I think what would be interesting is, because we're doing the listening, to let them know that we are doing it. And that if, because we don't want to necessarily be an echo chamber of only the people that I reach out to, who I know are people that I know and think the way that I think they're going to think. I'd also like to hear from people who maybe don't think the way that I think too. So by putting it out, through that town and to say that we're going to be speaking to people about these things, if there's somebody who is really passionate about that, but doesn't really have a connection to us, that might open the door for them to reach back. And so, in the interest of fairness, to kind of give everybody the opportunity. Doug?
I just want to support that, because I think, again, there's a risk of our sort of being insular in this and not really knowing what we don't know. So any opportunity we can get out there to say, if you have ideas about other groups or constituents or stakeholders or whoever to talk to, that are sort of outside, we haven't come up with it, but there's probably a lot of people out there with different ideas, and if we can
So
come
maybe
up,
that's a good first message.
channel that information into the committee somehow without it being a fire hose, would be good.
And I would say if someone is like compelled in some way or has an idea, then that person should kind of help lead this charge. I mean, Gina and I at the helm as co-chairs, I think we both see our function as just keeping the wheels on the rails, but success will be when someone who has never joined a task force meeting jumps on and is like not quite sure who's in charge, because we're all
Right.
kind of, so if someone is compelled and has ideas for messaging and reaching out and not being insular, all power to, bring those suggestions here. So, again, happy to add it to new business tonight to like bring it up as an action point or put it on an agenda for next time. But
well, I know we're asking in our phone calls that we'll talk about in a minute. That's one of the questions we're closing with, is like, who haven't we talked to? And if we can just ask that question elsewhere and then have a mechanism for getting that information into the committee, it'd be great.
And I want to remind this group, I don't know if collectively we've all been involved in so many different things, but the fact that we've had 3-4 meetings, I mean, how many has it been now? 1, 2, 3, this is our 4th meeting. The fact that we've been able to kind of do the work and lay groundwork that we have is no small undertaking. I mean, we have to remember that it's only been 4 meetings. So this is great. And I just want to encourage us to like stay positive and keep going, and that we're building this as we go along. So if you have an idea in the weeks in between the meeting about something that you either want to add on the agenda, please reach out to me or to Gina, to Alex, because to Ryan, because we're building this together. So, you don't have to wait until this meeting if something strikes you, because then we can actively add it and respond to it. And I know we're all still trying to get used to the flow and the style and how we communicate. And that'll, take a little bit. But the fact that we're 4 weeks in and like our website is going to start and we're going and that we've got it, like, not that I'm patting us on the back in a way that I don't want us to feel too good, but, I think like we should all feel inspired to keep going. And again, if you have something that you want to ask or include for a next agenda, just, reach out, because we can really make it part of the discussion for the group. Or like if you're, working privately on something, you should feel empowered to do it and share it with the group. So yes, I mean, Kathy, that's like a very long answer to your question, which is, of course, we absolutely need to be reaching out beyond our own group and using the networks as we have them, using this active listening or this deep listening time to figure out who's next, who are we missing, what other constituencies. And I think Ryan can report on maybe are there groups that we haven't yet thought of. Any other questions from the ad hoc members about, not specifically about the listening, but like anything that you've come across in your world since we last talked? All right, so then maybe we can now then turn to the active.
Could I go out?
Yeah, go ahead.
I should have added this before, but I happened to come across a pretty interesting book that the committee might be interested in. And if you are interested, I can send you, with some limitations, the actual chapters, but the title of the book is The Cost of Racism for People of Color, Contextualizing Experiences of Discrimination, but there's separate chapters on all sorts of the dimensions that we've talked about, from education to workplace to healthcare outcomes to occupational outcomes. So as we get into this, if there are specific, areas people are interested in, I'm happy to get a copy of the chapter to them, or more appropriately, the link to the chapter, because I can't just send
So
the entire book, but
wearing my event brain in my day job, you just kind of struck something, and it's kind of the culture piece that is interesting to me. Is there a space should we create a space on the website that's like our suggested, I see Kathy nodding, I'm curious if anyone else is there, like suggested reading, books, podcasts, like compiling a list. I'm happy to be the collector of all that material and then hand it off to Ryan and Alex to post. But it also might be interesting, Doug, given your point, like each week or every 2 weeks or every whatever, we have a guest, what is it, like a guest reviewer, like a staff pick, where like Doug recommends this book and blah, blah, blah. And it's like a separate thing that might be, disclaimer, she's not speaking, Doug isn't speaking on behalf of the whole task force, but this is something he thinks. Loretta likes the idea, thank you, of having the resources. But, just you as an individual, like, has been compelled by this. And what that does is it's like, we're not endorsing something as a task force, but you, Doug, are just talking about something that resonated for you. And that might be like a fun, hey, I saw this movie, I listened to this podcast, and here's why I loved it. And here's why it resonated for me. And that's something that may also get press attention. It's like it's a way to connect with the community at large in a way that's not, that's kind of user friendly, perhaps. Is that intriguing to people? All right, so if you all have ideas, email them to me about books, movies, podcasts. We'll sort of we'll figure out a cute name for it, but like the Cultural Corner, where we collect a reading list. And I know some really good ones exist already, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and he made a great book list, and there's lots of links that there's no shortage. Okay, ways to get involved. So I'm just reading the chats for everyone. Thank you, Loretta. Kathy said the Instagram that Fairfield's Equity Coalition has set up has an excellent page of resources. All right, and even if we link to them, we can talk about that. I think obviously spending some time on the website is going to be important. So maybe we can, in the course, this is homework assignment, whatever number for the group is, let's bring to the table different things that we want to add to the website. Spend some time looking at the website, looking at the town website. And I'll add that as a big agenda item. And including trainings and workshops that other organizations could use. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's no end. So I think we can forgive ourselves that it's not going to be a complete list, but it can be a work in progress list. And we can make sure that is understood, that it's a work in progress and constantly changing and fluid, and we're adding to it. If they recorded this training that Temple Israel is doing, that would be a great thing to do. We can put up a recording of the conversation that the Senior Center and Fairfield Cares, we can put a link to that as under a trainings and workshops. So I think it would be beneficial to spend some time, show of hands if you all agree, really talking about the website and okay. So good there, Instagram, yep, okay. The deep listening, circling back to that, if I may. Have you all had some luck? And Gina and our job here is to, again, make sure that everyone is staying on track. Because our goal was to really, if we look at the timeline, is by next meeting, which is December 15th, we are really set to start crafting the survey questions based on the deep listening findings. So that gives us not a lot of time to make sure, one, that we finish the calls, that our sheets, our template sheets that we are filling out as we're making the calls, that those are completed and then submitted to Kathy and Alex and Sonia, is my understanding, to kind of, am I right about that? To parse out some of the findings and the papers, the data group. Who is going to be the collector of that information? And Karen may be the sort of lead on this, and she's not here, so
Yeah, I can
we
look through what Karen sent before, that table that she filled out. Just give me.
yeah. So, well, the idea is, so the table really told us who was talking to who, but in terms of what our next sort of hard deadline is to so right now we're currently in the deep listening qualitative research phase. We're identifying who should be talked to in town and ask survey key questions. We're asked to identify what should be asked in the survey, and so we're talking to the stakeholders. So that's happening now, and it's through December 18th. That's sort of the deadline. So December 18th is when we turn over. By the next meeting is when, oh, here's Karen now. Look at her. She is just coming in. Karen Lynch, you just heard your name. Beautiful timing.
Oh, I did not hear my name, but
You've been summoned.
No, you heard it spiritually.
All right, why? What's up?
So we're at the point where we're talking about how by next meeting, December 15th, really, if we're looking at the schedule laid out on your beautiful graph timeline,
Yes.
we should be done with our phone call phase, and with that, filling out the forms, the templates
Yep.
of those conversations. When the task force members and the ad hoc members have completed those conversations, what do they do with those results, with the findings of their conversation, with the notes they've taken? Then what?
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not 100% here because I was just dealing with the the unherded cats, is what I just keep calling everything. They're all supposed to be kind of given to a person to consolidate them into kind of a comprehensive brief, if you will. I'm pretty sure that's where we had netted out the last time.
And I put you
In charge
and this
of that.
could be wishful thinking, but I put you, Sonia, and Alex kind of in the lead on that.
Yeah.
And then if you want to expand out, or if people want to push in, but with your backgrounds, I thought that made some amount of sense.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Alex, and I know Sonia's in the car, right? But does that make sense to you guys?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm good.
We can reunite our trio and pull it all together.
Makes sense to me. I'm doing website too, so I might have to, if someone else really wants to, that would be a nice way to disseminate a little bit of the work, but certainly I would definitely love to look at it at least.
Okay. And here
I can take over for Alex in the helping with Sonia and Karen. I can do that.
That's great. Okay.
Got a lot on his plate.
Thanks, Sandra.
Yep.
And that's great. So we leave it collectively. Hi, Steve. We leave it collectively to the individuals filling out the forms to be responsible for turning them into, Gina and I will ask you at the beginning of the next meeting, if you haven't, to please turn them in, because that would be exactly the right timing.
Wait, can I just go back to something though? Because I
Yeah.
just pulled up that deck again, and I might be wrong, but on that line item of synthesizing the findings from deep listening, it says Karen is point with Doug and Ryan. Do Doug and Ryan have any recall of that from our
Oh, I
last?
see. You're right. You're right.
So
They're like,
I-
what
you
we
know,
get ourselves into?
I show up
You're right,
late
I
and
see.
everything falls
I think
apart.
in my head, I thought there was one step in between the sheets coming in and what I was going to do, but if I'm on for synthesizing the sheets, I'm
So-
happy to.
Yeah,
So,
I was just going back to try to find out who was
Yeah.
assigned to that too. And I think the reason I wasn't speaking up either, I'm on the same page with you, Doug. I was like, oh, okay, are we supposed to get it now? But that's fine.
but maybe Sandra could help in the sort of interim step, help kind of organize it and look through, and Karen, with your guidance and Sonia's guidance, can help with Sandra to get it to a place where then Doug and Ryan could join in. I mean, again, no amount of, there's space for all of us here.
Yeah, I
And-
think part of what needs to happen is somebody needs to be the literal collector of the templates.
Sandra, do you want that to be you?
I'll totally do that. And,
Awesome.
and whatever, you know, I'm just thinking that I will look through them and see what are the main,
Yeah.
things that are the same, you know, through the, you know, the thread that's the same the whole time. It's kind of the way I'm thinking, right?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and then it's probably just, Sandra, you and I can talk, but it's probably just, highlight the top takeaways and then, we can share those out and put them together in such a way that it's shareable. That's, I think, one of the big things that we can learn from it.
I'm wondering if the people turning in, every task force member who's made these calls, if you can put it into a Word document, so you're not like taking a handwritten thing and creating work. Like if you could each be responsible to make sure it's in a format that will then not add tremendously to Sandra and Karen's plate, but if it's in a Word document, then they can synthesize and move things around and edit appropriately. Jason, to your question, there is in the document that was sent out from Karen, it's more broad in terms of what topics people are covering, but I don't know that there are actual specifics in terms of who's talking to who. If that's helpful, we can spend a few minutes and everybody can chime in with who they're speaking to, but that could also be part of the collection that we're then reporting back to the group. So what do you guys think? What collectively do you all think would be helpful?
There was just some ambiguity there for me, so I just figured I'd pop the question. I know people are all running on different things, so
So what's the question? I missed the beginning.
Who's talking to who?
basically.
I think we know broadly, like who's talking to what groups. Like we can say INI is talking to the faith-based groups, and Karen and I'm forgetting who else is talking to, maybe I don't know, to the education group, and spoke to John Whaley, but I don't know that we have a list of the specific people. Again, if the group feels like we should share a list,
And we're not working off the list that Karen gave us.
we are working off that list.
So, I mean, I've talked to Chief Liddy and I've talked to Julie DeMarco from Social Services.
And
I mean,
Steve, you were on the phone when we said that you'll take those findings and send them to Sandra, who's gonna, had you joined at that point?
No,
All right,
No.
so
Hey, Nancy, can you present the deck so we can kind of look at it while we talk?
Karen, or Alex, it's in our backup material from last time that we had turned in, or Karen, do you have it easily accessible?
I can get it.
Okay. Because I think it would be beneficial, it sounds like. And I can read it off while we're doing it. So Steve was talking to the Chief of Police, Chief Liddy, but he also talked to Julie DeMarco from Social Services.
Yeah, and just so you all know, it was in the email it was included in the email from Alex with the minutes, just so
Yeah.
you all were emailed with.
You can share your screen with me and I have it handy if it helps.
Okay.
I don't mind sharing. I just pulled it up. I just have,
Sonia, have you had a chance to talk to Mark Barnhart?
So no,
Okay.
I have reached out multiple times and I'm not getting any response.
All right. Would it help you? I can connect you both by email.
Perfect.
All right. And I'll do that as we speak. So that's Mark Barnhart and Youth Voices for Equity. Gina, have you had a chance to speak to them in an official way?
I'm actually talking to John now. He's given me a few names of students that I'll be talking to in the next couple weeks. And also I'm going to reach out to Trey from Fairfield Jubantu to talk to see if there's anyone in his orbit that I don't know about. So I should have something to report for the next meeting.
Okay. And again,
Also too, by the way, I did talk to Lenasia Brevard, who is for the Fairfield Equity Coalition, and they are putting together they did their own survey that they're presenting to the Board of Ed on the 15th, and she has volunteered to actually come and do a presentation for us if we're interested. So I'd love to get her on the agenda so she can share with us the results of the survey that they did.
And would that be part of the larger group listening, or is it at this kind of deep listening phase? What do you guys think?
So I feel like, they did their own version of deep listening because they polled Fairfield school alumni. And the last I heard, they had over 400 responses. So they've actually already done a survey of people who graduated from the school. So I really thought that we would have some value hearing what they've done and help us not have to reinvent the wheel since they've already done it. So the idea would be to have her share their report with us, and we can use some of their data as well.
Okay, so it sounds like it would be great if she could get on the December 15th agenda then.
I think December 15th might be the night that she's actually presenting to the Board of Ed.
Could she use this as, oh, okay, and it's 6 o'clock.
I think she's
so,
presenting that same
okay.
night.
All right, so then the only issue there being.
Wait, let me hold on a second. Oh no, she actually, you know what? She's presenting on the 16th. So let me ask her if she can do it on the 15th.
Okay. And she can use it as practice. That's great because then we get into the issue of like not meeting again until, so Lenasia. All right, so now if we go back, Innie, you've mentioned that you're meeting with the various stakeholders in the faith community, including Evan and Alita and Vanessa and David. Was there anyone else I missed, Innie?
No, that's what I wanted to know because those calls are set up for Tuesday. If there is anybody else that I need to speak to, if the group thinks any other, congregation, to let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we have on the template or the discussion guide is to kind of guide you is to ask them if they believe there's anybody else.
Right.
They might be tapped into the kind of the people in that space.
Okay. So that will happen after Tuesday, but before that, if any of the members here feel that there's a particular organization that they are close to or they know, then that's that. But of course, I will be asking these individuals as well that if they recommend someone that I should be speaking to.
All right, and if anyone, again, if something is jogged, like a thought, an idea, an inspiration, don't wait for these meetings. And Jason, no need to apologize. I mean, we're all in this together. The only thing I'll say is if we delay doing the work in between, we just make it harder collectively on ourselves in terms of pushing back. We're only going to be as effective as we want to be, and our, we are our own sort of, I don't know how to say this. Like, if we're slow to the task, that's okay. Like, then we're slow to the task, but we're only getting in our own way of being successful. So I would just encourage and urge us all collectively in between, don't just wait for these meetings. Like, oh yeah, okay, now I'll do the work, like it is going to be, especially in these early days, it's going to be a commitment of time in the spaces in between. So I just want to remind everybody of that it's not just like one meeting, 10 days, another meeting. It's a meeting, lots of little spending time doing, and if you want sidebar conversation about how you can do that, how to best organize your time so that you can carve it out, because I know it can be really overwhelming. So I know we're all juggling a lot. So I say this fully understanding as someone who also works and has kids and blah, blah, blah. So that is just hopefully a pep talk that's remotely effective. Okay, so Karen, you are set to talk to the superintendent, Board of
I already
Ed.
talked to Mike. I had a
Okay.
great call. He put me in touch with John Whaley, as you know. And I had a great call. And my next order of business is set up some calls with some Board of Ed members, which is, just a matter of who, which ones,
Great.
that kind of thing. So I just haven't done that discernment yet. So that's next on my to-do list.
Okay, great. And Tamisha had already logged in that she's, Tamisha, I don't know if you're able to, let me look back what you said. If you want.
I'm here. I can.
Yeah.
So I have a meeting scheduled next week with a former town rep. I'm still waiting to hear back on a confirmation of date and time from housing.
Great. Doug and the Sands call.
I have an appointment with him tomorrow morning. He was out of town, and obviously he's a pretty busy guy given the pandemic, but we have time tomorrow morning. And as I said, I'm hopeful to get a list from him of other people to follow up with that work within his department. So I'll make my starting point, but I hopefully will speak with him tomorrow morning.
All right, great. And Steve had mentioned talking to Julie DeMarco. Any luck connecting with Carla from Operation Hope?
I didn't attempt to talk to Carla. I don't know if you guys know, they had a kind of a tragic event in the family of Operation Hope. One of the volunteer coordinator got hit by a car over in the old post. She's in a coma. She's been for like,
no.
I don't want to bother Carla right now.
Yeah, of course. Wow. So sorry. I had not heard that
And
actually.
that was the accident that they shut down the.
Oh,
the
yes.
other
Oh,
day.
no.
Yeah, it was
Terrible.
very nice lady, Donna Schmidt.
Terrible.
So, I was going to leave Carla alone for a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, of course. Alex, we have you here as a question mark for Jim Hazelkamp, the Human Resources Director. Is that something you're still able to take on, or are you looking
Yeah,
for
no,
support there?
I emailed him actually earlier today asking if he had time in the next few days, and if not, if there was someone he would recommend instead. So I kind of gave him, a timeline by the middle of next week. So I anticipate speaking to someone in HR by the middle of next week.
Thank you. I love how on it everyone is. And Tamisha, the same with RTM, RTC, DTC, you had mentioned that, so. Any update you want to add?
Oh, no, I haven't reached out to anyone. I actually just saw it on my notes that I was supposed to reach out to Steve.
Okay. And then the RTC, any of our Republican friends here, or Tamisha, if it wanted to be you, but if you need help reaching out across the aisle to connect with the RTC, don't stand on ceremony here. Reach out, ask your fellow task force members or someone that might be connected to the RTC to help.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay. Fairfield History Museum, Dan and Innie, any update there? Dan, did I see you?
Yep.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, we're speaking with them tomorrow at 1:15.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Say hello. Other groups, Ryan, I know, were you successfully able to log back in? I can't see.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm having connectivity problems tonight, but I just, all I did was kind of go back through some of the minutes and tried to grab other groups that had been mentioned. And I'm trying to kind of cross-reference here. One thought, I don't know if Fairfield Cares is something, but that came up a couple of times. If that is an appropriate group to talk to. The Fairfield Education Association, the Teachers Association. A possibility. Fairfield Equity, is that, did that already
Yeah,
get?
that's covered.
Youth, is that Voices for Equity? Is that the
Yeah.
same thing? Okay.
Yeah, and I also would say, I'm wondering, Gina, do you think like Bob Smoller, the Teachers Association, do you think that's a separate call, or do you think we should listen to what Lanesia has to say first?
Well, John is one of the chairs of that
Okay.
committee too, isn't he? Didn't Karen just talk to him?
Yeah, all right, perfect. I forgot that he was also involved.
Yeah, I
so-
talked to him and actually that came up and some of their efforts came up. So I don't think we need to do another call. Just kind of told me what they're doing there.
Okay. So
Fairfield Cares, I do think Riney, who has joined our calls, I think it would be great if someone wants to talk to Riney and specifically through the lens of this template of questions, and even Kristen McCarthy Vahey wearing her Fairfield
That was the-
Cares hat.
Yeah, right. Also I just thought, I wondered if, I know the task force is separate, but would it be appropriate at this juncture to talk to the first selectman and maybe the other second selectman as well? Just to get that in.
That's an
and what
idea.
Yeah.
What about the legislators? I think this is a juncture where you want to make sure you've touched base with them and, let them have some input if they have it and what they're thinking.
Yeah, and I think that, I'm happy to talk actually, Tamisha, to the RTC.
Well, I was just going to comment, Nancy, that the individual that I had scheduled for RTM, he is the district leader for the RTC. So can I
perfect.
consolidate?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. And then just make sure if there's somebody else he feels.
Okay, I'll ask him.
Yeah, perfect, Tamisha.
Okay.
And I love the point of talking to Tom Flynn and to the first select woman. I think I'm probably not the best person. I think it's better if it's kept separate, only because I've had conversations and I don't want to go in with my own bias, although there is a template that's there. And is anyone want to raise their hand for talking to Tom and to Brenda?
I'll do it. That's fine. Nancy, it's Tamisha.
Okay, you're doing a lot of these. Are you sure it's okay?
I can do
Wait,
it too.
You'll do it? Okay.
Tamisha, I mean, it sounds like you're kind of taking on a lot and
yeah,
I don't,
Okay.
That'd be great.
I can talk to Tom and Brenda.
You were reading my mind because I was channeling you, Sandra. I thought you'd be the perfect person for this.
Okay.
And I think you have, history and connections. So
Yes.
That would be great. And if you need the template, it's to remember to look back in your emails from Alex, who has diligently sent that. So I think, did anyone want to take on the Riney Fairfield Cares piece? Is there someone that feels that they haven't committed to a call or eager to make another one? Doug, that might be kind of your wheelhouse.
But Nancy, I think under the other
Jason.
other research in the second page there, Fairfield Cares was noted, and that's what I was a little confused about where we left the last meeting. So maybe that's an area. I don't feel like I've done too much there. I'd be happy to speak to somebody if there's somebody there. Maybe I was going to reach out to Steve after this.
Perfect.
When I saw that.
Yeah, Jason, and I think the spirit of this page here and this secondary research is, the spirit of it is these people we know have research that they've done some survey work, so we need to procure those and get kind of their findings and their insight from the work they've already done, which is a little different than the deep listening interviews, which are asking people for like firsthand experiences with racial justice or injustices within the system that they operate in. So I'm sure you can, certainly reach out to Riney and get a little of both.
Okay. Yeah, there's some names where I can be pointing in the right direction. That'd be helpful. If somebody wants to put them in the chat or follow.
Or Jason, if you start with that and the list expands, call me or text me and I'll help you do the second level of that if you want.
Okay.
Right.
Are you, Karen, are you typing these in as people say them? Are you adding?
I'm not. I am not.
I'm
Well,
taking
so-
notes.
I don't know that
All
we have a
right.
lot of new information.
Well, we've got, just in terms of the assignments, I think.
No, I
it
have not been,
would be
I have
helpful
not
to
been
have
doing that. I have a lot of.
Well,
bulk
I
there.
would just say these aren't really technically new assignments. There are a couple, like Sandra's taking on a few phone calls. It will be in the minutes that Alex is typing, but I
Yep.
really urge, again, in this spirit of like, we all have to take ownership and responsibility. If we've given an assignment here tonight, own it, take it, and so that we're not all having to micromanage, that Gina and I aren't having to like micromanage. And so,
Now, my suggestion was just to get it in a document so that anybody, you know, so that you guys could look at it and next week when somebody doesn't remember who was going to do that, you know, they could see it.
I mean, it is here from last time, and the only additions, I think, Karen, if you want to update
Jason
your-
and Sandra.
yeah, those are the two updates. But yes, I mean, of course, so that it serves as a document so that we can reference back. But I don't think there are only those two changes. I think everything else is just.
What
gonna-
about the legislators? How about the state legislators? What was the thought on that? Reaching out to them.
Do we need to, I guess the question is, if this is a town endeavor, and yes, the state obviously impacts every, you know, so much of what we do. Is that something we want to do at the deep listening stage, or do we want to do this when we have the next phase of group, the listening groups? And include them separately, do you think? I mean, I guess I would say back in responses, it doesn't hurt to have it.
I think it, yeah, I don't know.
And I think it is important to, so it's Kristen McCarthy Vahey, it's Laura Devlin, it's Tony Wang, it's Jen Leeper is new to the state representation. So maybe, Jason, maybe in your talking to Riney Noor about Fairfield Cares, Kristen McCarthy Vahey wears two hats. She's a state rep, but she's also involved in Fairfield Cares. So maybe we could ask you to add that to your plate.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Jen Leeper, as I said, is new to the team. Tom and Sandra or Sandra is going to talk to Tom and Brenda specifically. Jason will talk to Kristen McCarthy Vahey. So that town political system is sort of chopped up a little bit between Tamisha and Jason and Sandra. So Laura, Tony, and Laura and Tony are the outliers in terms of who's going to talk to them. Not outliers. We haven't assigned somebody yet. And we could also
name on here now, Kristen, we have Laura, we have Tony, we have Tom, we have Jen. Anybody else in the political system whose name I'm missing?
Brenda
Oh, yeah.
Kupchak.
ICK, ECK? Yeah,
ICK.
ICK. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone who's had some phone calls, had anything that's insightful for those that have not yet made the phone calls that they want to offer? Any challenges, roadblocks, any successful tips?
Oh, Nancy,
Yes, Doug.
or Dan, actually.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
It's okay. In case we're moving on from the groups, I don't know if you recalled, so I suggested maybe the universities and the unions as groups to talk to. And I think the universities in particular could be good partners in whatever gets rolled out.
Remember the purpose, and we can certainly do that, but remember, we're diverging again, which is not the intent of the deep listening interviews. The deep listening interviews is to kind of cast some nets and get the information that we need to inform a survey design. It's not the end of our discussions. So we have to discern who are the people we need to talk about now so that we can draft the right survey instrument, and who are the people that we wanted to talk to all next year. So I just want to make sure that we remember this isn't our definitive list of people we want to talk to. It's just, when do we want to talk to each of these groups?
Right. And
I'm afraid if we go too broad right now, we will fatigue the people that we might need for future discussions next year.
which is why I feel like if we talk to Tom and we talk to Brenda and Kristen, you'll talk to Jason, that it's okay right now if we're not talking to everybody for the reason Karen just brings up. And Dan, excellent point. Like, we're not talking to Wakeman Boys and Girls Club yet, but that's okay because we're getting some youth voices. We're getting some of the culture. Like, to Karen's point, this is a marathon. I think the groups we're talking to at this point will give us a pretty good place and sampling to start from in terms of building a survey. And then we can, when we go out with the survey, when we start the listening groups, we can
'cause
then figure out.
we might identify key questions to ask people with our efforts. And if we talk to them now, we ask them some questions, but then they're like, didn't I just talk to you? You know, it's sort of like what happened with John Whaley when he was like, didn't I just talk to somebody? And I'm like, different objectives. But if we tap the same people repeatedly, we won't, it's just survey fatigue or you know, research fatigue. So we have to be mindful.
Yeah, I just think with the universities in particular, they've had such an institutional impact in the town. And again, they probably have some diversity coordinator already that would maybe welcome this and would start to build that relationship.
Dan, how do you, I think that maybe with that, and again, with the universities going off soon and being very focused on Corona and COVID, if you're willing to make some initial inquiries and to make a call to see if then it would be great. Oh, Gina.
So I used to sit on the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee last year at Fairfield U, and I do have a connection there. But I think I agree with Karen. I think we can circle to them in the next level, like when we have more of a survey, because I think they are kind of engaged in their own work right now, and we can. I think using them when we have to take it to the next step might be a better use for them.
Hi, can I say something? It's Elise Fatherly. I'm on the phone. I couldn't join this evening. Hi. I'm not sure if this was mentioned before, but one of the women on our call, I believe she's an attorney who's here in Fairfield. She mentioned the last time reaching out to the Council of Churches of Greater Bridgeport. And I reached out to them because actually one of my clients is on their board, and they have work that they do about anti-racism work. And I reached out to the Reverend Pastor Cass there, and she emailed me a bunch of things, like just a bunch of things on the anti-racism work. And I don't know how relevant that is and how it would fit into the research work that you're doing, or how you would use the information.
Thank you. Do you want to share it? Do you want to email it to, I'm wondering, Karen, do you think should we collect that as part of?
Well, yeah, so it brings to mind the other thing that I had emailed you about, which is, you know, when our committee or members of our committee are invited to something to listen in on, we need to have a system for, you know, note taking or some way to distill what we're learning from other events or other seminars or other forums. We need to be able to send kind of send a representative to listen and learn, or read a document and learn and report back in. So we need some sort of a system moving forward for that. Like, I know Annie had said she was going to go to something.
I agree. Yeah,
don't have
I
a-
agree because I had a conversation with her and honestly, I didn't really know what to ask her to do for the group. So I agree with that.
Yeah, so we just need some sort of a system, and whether it's just, the Cornell note-taking system is the first thing that came to my mind. Where
Karen, you weren't here when we referenced you in your Cornell note-taking system.
Oh, I just love them so much. But it's either that
We
or
happened to find out we didn't know what they were.
oh. Well,
We were like, we love it when you speak in such.
Oh, it's basically just a way to listen to a lecture and distill it and kind of synthesize the learnings into something that's a soundbite.
Yeah.
So it's really nothing more than just a piece of paper that's an organization system.
Yeah, I have so just to jump in, Karen, Annie did send me a template that she had put together. I can send it out with the minutes if we want to consider it. However you want to, I can send it out right now. But I have a template that Annie sent, that created and sent.
I mean, I think that's a great idea, but more importantly, we need a keeper of the information that's coming to us in that way. So like whatever that document was, we need we need to have like a record of,
Well, it's two things.
Yeah, this group sent us this, or this event, this person attended, like something.
So it's both, and Karen, we had talked about this when you, before you had joined. But so based on the email, you had sent us, so it's a couple things. It's like the community calendar, so people are aware of the events.
Yeah.
But then it's also, how do we sign up for something internally to say, oh, hey, I'm going to this, and then like, what's the reporting mechanism? And so I think we're gonna have to do a little work in between now, today, and when we meet the next time, so that someone can present the best way to do this. So if anyone is really passionate about this, and if you all think this is the best way to go, I think we could use some steering of the ship on this particular.
I have an idea about it.
Okay.
I think reports like that, because I know I did a couple of reports too, on things that I went and researched or whatever, that kind of fall into that category. And in order to reference them, if they are attached, like when some individual gives a report about it, if it's a typed up 1 page, half page, whatever, using that format, that can be referenced in the minutes and attached to the minutes and become part of the actual minutes document, so that it's literally a report that goes in. And so if I assume that either people will go to the website to find the minutes, or I don't know, like I do, you have a folder on your computer where you throw minutes in, or you go back and look in your emails for them, but then it would be there. It would always be there, not organized as tight in such a tidy way, but at least it would be there if you wanted to reference something immediately after the meeting. Rather than just have a very condensed, oh, you gave a 2-page report, but it just got captured, in a shorter amount of words. So, and I think that's kind of typical for board meetings. When people give reports, they submit, on a page, and then do a shorter verbal report of it. And then it doesn't have to, all that information doesn't have to be included in the body of the minutes either, because you're getting a full report.
I'm taking notes as you're talking. Does anyone, and I think that's right. I think we have to, that sounds, Ryan, like a good streamlined way to do this. And I'm just curious if we figure out, are we going to figure out today what that exact structure looks like? Or is it something that someone wants to work on to present to the group to say, okay, this is the format, the template, this is what the community calendar is going to look like. I know I'm going to work on the piece that's like the books and the movies and all of this, but.
Yeah, because I think you don't necessarily want like a whole section on the website that is just like a list of every report that anybody,
right,
submitted, but it's very different if it's attached to the minutes and referenced in the minutes, and then becomes contextualized also. And at the same time, everybody on the task force gets it. They have it in their documents. They can go back and look without going, oh, could you send me that after the meeting? I know that happened with me of like, oh, could you send me the report that you actually did? And also it keeps whoever's taking minutes from having to do such, detailed minutes about what they say. It's just like,
Right.
okay, this is reported, see attached, boom, you're done.
I think that's a great solution for the reporting of what people heard.
Yeah.
I still think we need the solution for the who's attending, is somebody attending this thing? Because I think as a task force, we want the positive, we don't want people to be like, well, I invited that committee, nobody showed. Like, I don't want the negative PR from us not engaging in these other community events, because I think there will start to be the expectation that we're listening to everything. So I think I'm mostly worried about like this thing that was emailed this week
about the CCM conference today.
CCM conference, and I don't know I'm like, well, I don't know, is anybody going to that? Like, somebody should go to that. Do we have a representative out there? And I don't know the answer, and I feel like if it would be easy for all of us to say, well, somebody else is going,
right,
and then therefore we don't take it on ourselves, and then therefore we're not there, and the community thinks we don't care.
Did you say we can't do a Google Doc, Nancy?
It just has to be accessible to the public. So that's why I was saying like a community calendar. But the question is,
But that you don't put assignments on. Yeah.
Right. So that's a hard thing, Karen, because how do we in advance, communicate about it? Unless people take it upon themselves, if they find something, to reach out to individuals on the task force to find someone that's going. I mean, do we want to take ownership that way, that it becomes incumbent on us as an individual if something crosses our desk to say, CCM, I can't go to this. So I start down the list. Ryan, I'll ask you, can you go? No. I don't know. That's not probably the most effective way to do this.
Did anybody go to it?
I actually went to one of them too.
I went today.
I did too. I attended one of them as well. Or the one early on. Yeah.
I mean, but I think another piece of it is like to be a repository if other people want to go. I think it's separate to say that we're going to go to everything, but to be a place where the community can come, because I think that is a part of what we say the mission of the task force is too, which is to be that connector between the community and these other projects. So I think
it'd be nice to know that CCM, instead of just posting it and various people, oh, hey, did you see this? It's like that CCM reaches out to us to say, can you add this to your community calendar? So it is two things. It's one about getting task force members and ad hoc members to go and report in, but it's also about making sure the information is posted on a broader community calendar for someone who's looking to be engaged, where they could go. And this would, so it's twofold. I mean,
that's likely something that we'd want to put in our one-day blueprint.
Yes.
To continue.
Right.
So it's almost like if we can set up this, then we can then check we've already got something in our blueprint.
and by the way, having the bones of something does not mean we have to have it done perfectly. To your point, Karen, and it's an excellent one. It's like, we're still building this thing as we're flying on it. So if we don't have it right out of the gate, it's something that we should absolutely put in the recommendation, which is a really good segue into something that Steve and I talked about earlier this week, which is, we know that the end goal is this blueprint. Steve, do you want to talk about what we talked about? I don't want to.
I actually want to talk about CCM.
Can I stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody again?
Oh yeah.
I want to talk about CCM because it's actually into something that's I'm thinking about. We're going through this active listening, and we're listening to what people's experience is with the racial equity and justice. The main point that CCM makes is that you have to look at systems, and you have to start to break down systems to really make any kind of formidable, have any kind of impact. So listening is great, but are we going to really look at the hiring practices? Are we going to look at, the actual policies and procedures? Are we going to look at, because that's where the actual change is going to happen. And that's, go ahead, Gina.
I totally agree with you, Steve. And I think I don't know what Karen was thinking, but in my mind, I feel like, we all have our ideas about where these things happen, but people respond best to stories. When we say we want to look at the hiring processes, that becomes meaningful when we say we heard from a person who lives in town that they had this experience. So I'm really looking at, and I don't know if everybody agrees with this, that this, and that's why we're doing this so early, this is where this springs from. Like, this gives us our, like, the nuggets that we work from to say, like, this is not a problem that happens out there somewhere. This happens here, and here's the evidence that it happens here because we heard this from someone who lives in town. So I think I agree with you, like, that is the next step of that, because we're gathering evidence
Right.
that will support that.
Yeah, we're all working on the same team. We're trying. So my conversation with the police chief, he sees us as a resource. The hiring is a hurdle for them. They're having trouble attracting, diverse people. We could help with that somehow. That's the other issue is they need somebody in the middle who can facilitate for the community. So it's not just like those meetings we go to where everybody's yelling a million questions at them. It's going to be the task force would be in the middle, organize a voice of reason, and the answers they would get answers to the questions would be asked and then would be answered. And it's frustrating for the police chief. That's one of the things that came out is he needs some kind of medium where he can have a communication with the community.
Which argues in favor of there being some permanent version of this task force, right?
Correct.
It's not so much that we become that now, it's that our blueprint says the town needs this mediator function filled.
That's likely to be one of our recommendations in lieu of a formal civilian complaint review board, right?
Perhaps, yeah.
That's the other, that's the other thing.
Which I do think dovetails, Steve, into what we were talking about, this
Oh, yeah.
idea of like, do you want to, and we can
Oh,
circle
go
back.
ahead,
I don't,
please. Run with it.
I should run, okay. The idea that we know that at the end, we will deliver this blueprint in January of 2022. Do we want to, or, and Steve had sort of started the makings of it several weeks, or like a week in, taking our mission statement, parsing it out. I think it's important. That we start the blueprint now, that we start writing, so that we start crafting some of this, so that we're not reinventing the wheel and trying to remember, and because you see how easy it is to forget when there's 10 days in between. So, again, Steve had started the bones of it, I think, 2 weeks ago. Steve, but please talk, because I feel like I keep hearing myself.
Yeah, so it's so now if we have like a game plan, I know you don't like the sports analogy, Nancy, but I can't help it. So if we have like a game plan that we're all looking at, so we go through the listening project, we go through, it's part of the game plan. We go through the what we did, Doug, with the best practices other towns. That's a section, and then another section is some of the administrative stuff that we do, and we have roles and responsibilities, and we're all working off the same plan instead of, I think a lot of the stuff that we're talking about will come into focus and it'll help organize the plan. So at the end of the day, we're not scrambling. We all own it. We know it in and out. We can communicate it to whoever we have to communicate it to. So to that end, yes, I'll write a shell or a format and I'll share it with the team, and we guess we can, Karen, I think it'll help what you're kind of to your point. But as far as the specifics within each section, that's like you own the research part of it. We own the best, other town best practices, and then at the other sections are Nancy will delegate.
Any thoughts on what Steve and I are just,
And I'll send something out, like, now I'm not waiting till the next meeting. I'll send it out and then we can kind of go back and forth. I think that's what you were alluding to, Nancy.
yeah, I mean, I just think like we have to keep continually, as Karen is so good at bringing us back to, and
Right.
as Gina is so good at bringing us back to, we have an end goal and we have to make sure that the way we're functioning and the tasks that we're taking on and the way we go about this keeps that mission, that end goal in mind, and that we're laser focused on that. That some of this we will complete to its end, like the listening conversations, but some of it will be part of our recommendations down the line. So we should be making sure that we're putting those things in the blueprint so that come December 2021, we're not scrambling to type this all up, that it's been, the document has been a work in progress all along.
So quick
And-
question, Nancy, just in terms of, again, the transparency, like, is this something that Steve or one person holds on to? Like, hey, let's not forget that we might want to recommend that the permanent task force serves as a mediator or whatever with the Fairfield Police. Who holds that for the next 12 months? And if it gets shared out to the team, is that something that we now have to share to the public, who will now say, you've just started and you already got recommendations? I don't know. I just want to figure out the logistics of what that looks like.
I mean, I think we can answer it in many ways. I do think that having kind of one owner of it allows for just ease of responsibility, but it's a collective effort. It sounds like Steve is willing, at least at this point. Is there any objection to this, or not objection, Steve? I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but
I'll put it out there and you guys will figure out, you know.
I think let's start, because Steve, since you've already started the bones, you've started something again in the early weeks. Let's go with that. But I do think, like, the way I envision it, and I'd love to hear what you guys all think, is almost like the primer of the looking back, it's like the primer of the year, what it's been. So included in that blueprint would be all of our minutes, the agendas, just as like backup documentation. But that's just part of it. It's, for instance, the permanent presence of a website. Like, we know that's something that we've talked about, like being and again, maybe we can talk about, as an agenda item for next time, we can talk about what the blueprint should, things that we know to be sure. Gina, you look like you're.
I mean, I think it's more of like a logistical question, and I'm not sure if I was understanding you, Alexandra, that, this document itself, if it's something that we're all working on and shared in the same place, does that have to, like, how does the task force, in terms of like the rules, have work product like that? Like something that's not finished, that's not ready to be presented to the public. What's is there some special way that we have to take care of it? Or is it really just, we have to keep emailing it to Steve, and then Steve talks about it at the meeting, but we never show people? Because again, I feel like, I don't feel like you see working drafts of things until things are ready.
Correct. Yeah, I'm just asking about the logistics and the transparency, what we have to share with the public if we share it amongst all of us. My understanding is then it needs to be shared.
It does. It has to be in the spirit of transparency. And I don't think any of this ultimately should come as a surprise, because people have been on the journey along the way. And in some ways, if we're doing our job in the best way, there will be buy-in, so that by the time it gets to the people that need to, it's just a matter of like, okay, check the box, because we've been filling in people along the way, and there are no, it's not like we're all of a sudden revealing the wizard behind the curtain. Ryan did.
Right. It's just more like when you're working on a draft.
I know, it's weird. It's weird.
Do you want to?
Yeah. I think, again, like in terms of the transparency, you're working on, it's going to evolve every month, and before every meeting, maybe there's a new version of it, and if that is shared at the meeting, include that, attach that on to the minutes. Everybody gets the new version of it every 2 weeks or every month or however often we're meeting going forward. And it becomes public because it's in the minutes, but it's not something that you're like shining a big bright light on and saying, hey, this is draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, draft 4, which just seems ridiculous. It's not working. But and short of having a Google Doc where you really can at real time change it, you can't.
Exactly.
So I think that's the closest you could get to it.
Right.
And just change the version number every time you work on it. And Alex, in terms of posting it, like even the working documents that we were looking at tonight, those really should have been attached to the minutes. I looked on there and I don't see them with the minutes. Like
With
they
the-
should be all
with
in the
the
same
previous-
PDF. Like make it part of the one PDF that is the minutes. And like let's put everything in one document.
Mhm.
Well, it's gonna end up being 100 pages. Like the documents. So that's a good question. What goes on the website? What documents go on the website? Because I look at Fairfield Care's website and they have very organized, sections with all kinds of documents in it.
But that's what I think why we're going to put this on as a specific agenda item for next time. And I think that we're going to have a sidebar conversation with Gina and Alex and Ryan and Steve. If anyone's sort of really interested in that, I think that becomes the question, because I think it's a few-fold. It's resources, there's the user face part of the website, and then there's the working board part of the website.
Also,
There's
when
the
you're building
forward facing.
Yeah. And also when you're building this website, we're growing this. We're not really out in the public yet. So to spend an inordinate amount of time right out of the box, like front loading this when nobody's going to it, you have a plan. When you do a website, how are you going to get people to go to it and access it and know that it's there for them? So that's also.
And it circles back to what Kathy was saying, it's like reaching out to people. And I think too, good point, Ryan, like maybe now is not the time where we're spending our energy and our efforts in having a guest curator of a thing unless someone's compelled to write it, but maybe that becomes something that's for the blueprint. Like we think that this would be a great cultural, and we can do it so that there's proof of concept, enough so that so we have something to show to people, but it doesn't have to be in its finished form. Like that will be the job of Task Force 2.0 when it's approved in January of 2022.
To do what? To write it?
Well, no, I'm just saying like to really make things more robust. Like we're not delivering, in my opinion, this will not be a finished, what it is going to be is a plan for how we move forward, but it's not going to be.
Let's talk about the deliverable. We're going to deliver a blueprint, which is going to be a document, Gina. It's a document that includes all the stuff we're doing. We're going to give them a library of some sort, which I'm calling the website, which are going to have this information that we're, over the year, we're going to populate the website with documents that are relevant and recommendations.
And our end goal is that plan that says, when we looked at what the town needs, this is what we as a task force have determined based on what we have heard from people in the community, based on what we have uncovered in our own journey through all these different departments that the town could do to be a more equitable place. I mean, so yeah, I think ultimately we're pulling together all these backup documents, but the end goal is this plan that says this is how we think the town can improve. And that's kind of our goal. Or, this is how we think the town is doing well. We don't know what we're going to uncover, but we can say these are it's going to be really a very focused, these are our strengths, these are our weaknesses, this is how we think you should address them. I think and so that's the document that'll be kind of developing. And so, what did we just bring up tonight that would go on it? Like, the thing, like having a place where we keep these references going forward. That is something that we think the town could do to improve going forward, because we don't have that now. So ultimately the draft of that thing is, I think, the logistics of how that happens is what we're talking about now. And so I think probably just in the interest of time, we should, Steve, you're working on something now that you have.
I just do, yeah.
So like, let's share that around before the next meeting. And then at that point, we can make the decision about how we're going to really, it's more the actual, like, how does the document, where does it live? How does it get seen? All of that. I think we can push that off to.
Right.
So to your point, Gina, and in the interest, we've been doing a pretty good job of keeping our meetings tight, and just a reminder about all the work that needs to get done in the space in between. Just to briefly, before we move on, unless someone has any or not urgent, but something that they want to offer before we move on from this in particular, okay, so to reiterate, we're going to spend until our next meeting, which is December 15th, we're going to be collectively making the phone calls. We're going to be writing up our results from these phone calls in a nice Word document or something that we can then share with Sandra.
Remember, I have that template right in the discussion guide for everybody. So it's already in a Word document. So everybody should have a Word document template for their interviews.
I do want to add, I want to go back because Doug did ask a good question about Parks and Rec. I do actually think that, we can circle back to it, but because they do all the youth programming, Parks and Rec, I don't want to ignore that comment. The director of Parks and Rec do so much of the youth programming. So if not now, and maybe Gina, Karen, you're comfortable with pushing that one off, but it's certainly a group that we should. And I kind of put it in the same space as Wakeman Boys and Girls Club. I think there is a whole sort of untapped channel that we could maybe revisit as part of our learning groups, or do the outreach when we get to that space, but just certainly worth acknowledging. You're fine with that? I see Gina nodding. Okay. So, as I said, so we're going to spend the next 10 days doing our phone calls, using the template that Karen put in the notes that we are attached to the agenda and the minutes. At the next meeting, Steve's going to share the bones of what he's been working on. It'll be officially sort of version 1 of what will be the blueprint, and knowing that it'll be changed each time. We're going to talk about the template for both the calendar of events that is community facing, but also the mechanism in which we report in for events that we attend. So we're going to have to spend some time thinking about that. And again, you'll send your reports to Sandra. I just wanted to remind that. We'll talk about the website specifically. Alex, Gina, Ryan, separately, I think we could just talk about the things that we should make sure that are up to date on the website, at least now. There's going to be a section on the website for press releases, so that we know for sure. And then you'll send me separately if you have any ideas that you want to add to a reading list, to a movie list, a podcast list, an article list. And again, not because so many people are pushing into our website, but again, we want to build something that will be used as a case study or a proof of concept for what we might build out later. Karen, is that a hand raise?
It's a hand raise. I also just want to make sure that we, and maybe you just said this, I'm sorry, I'm so fatigued right now, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at our mission statement because it is a little more than the blueprint. If you look at that advocacy and continuous learning paragraph where it says, we may collect and curate said resources to make them available to residents, that's on us. So I just want everyone to reread those, because some of this stuff is, for the blueprint, but there is some stuff that's also on us if we get into the minutia of this charge. And I think that we should, I just feel like there's a priority to some of this community information in that paragraph.
Yeah, and thank you. That's a great point. Gina's vigorously nodding her head. And I think that if we start with some of the low hanging fruit, which are like the books lists and the community calendar, and we think about a way to organize that. Great point. Thank you for reminding Karen, reminding us, because not only then is it proof of concept, I stand corrected, it's really actually part of our charge. So it could serve both purposes, to be kind of the proof of concept of what should be long-term and sustainable, but also all the more reason why we have to think of a good reporting structure. We have to figure out the best way to get the events onto the community calendar. We have to think about the best way for reporting in. So that can be a big focus of our next week's or meeting the next time, especially since we don't need to spend the same kind of time talking about our findings, since we'll be then just kind of handing those off from these deep listening conversations. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, unless there's any standouts in the deep listening, if there's anything that anybody wants to bring up.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put that in. We can share those in the updates in the beginning that are always on the agenda. So if anyone has like a nugget they want to share, please do that. The discussion of other advocacy groups, I mean, I feel like we're touching on that. So I'm going to put a pin in like any robust discussion of that, because I think we now have a clearer charge about how we're going to think about it for next time, so that we can really come up with a plan. And that will be something we'll have to do for the next time, is really come up with a method of reporting in. So if everyone's okay with that, unless someone has anything else they want to add about other advocacy groups. Okay.
Can I just,
Yeah.
Courageous Conversations, I forgot to mention them earlier. Are people familiar with that group? It's like a group that had met at the library for a number of years. And I just recently have been going to their meetings. And should they be somebody that we reach out to? Just because of their longevity too. And
Yes. Yes. Sorry, it's Elise Fatherly. I am familiar with that group. I go to their meetings as well with Susan Stenkel.
mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I'm not sure if we're on overload right now, but honestly, I think all these groups, Yabantu, Courageous Conversations, I definitely think we should include these people, because they have unique things to offer, you know, and I just don't know what category. I think we need to figure out how we're going to create some kind of categories to really organize what we're doing, because we might lose track of some things.
And I think if we have a good system in place that both reports in, but also, I mean, I feel like where this will come into play is partnering with like Fairfield Yabantu, is when we get to the next step, the next stage. And we look to them, perhaps even as we organize the findings from the deep listening, we could then sit down with those groups. That might be an opportunity to sit down and say, hey, like, this is what we found. We're creating this survey. You know, do you have anything that you know, so maybe that's a good time to bring people in and to remind them that we're meeting. I mean, it's as much incumbent on us as it is to make sure that they too are reaching in. So it has to go both ways.
Do we have a mechanism for reaching out to just like open to everybody? Here we are. And so we don't exclude anybody.
And that's kind of what I was saying about, you know, if we can get on, like after we do this first round, if we can get on the first select women's weekly email, that's a great way to do it. You know?
There you go.
But I think, again, you know, I think we are really fortunate to have some people on this call who just do this all the time. And I want to like honor kind of the work that they've done. And I think they've kind of really conceptualize this in sort of layers that, you know, we have sort of this group of people that we're kind of talking to now. We've got this next level, and I think they see a path, you know, speaking about Karen, Alex, and Sonia had kind of put this together because they see a path for how we get to the next step. So like, I know we're all kind of have these great ideas, but I feel like this is something that they've kind of considered already, that there are these other groups. And I think we're starting at kind of at the individual level. Next phase is like kind of this next group. So is that fair, Karen? Is kind of what how you saw it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm picturing, based on the results of our survey, it could be that, in March, we kick off a group discussion where we've invited Parks and Recs and, the Voices for Equity, or, all of the people who are involved in youth in our town, from a sports to an academic to a whatever. And we have that youth oriented discussion group. And how meaty would that conversation be? And then maybe the next time, the next one is something different, who knows? So I think we have to see how that all plays out in the findings of the survey, but that's the vision that we had, is that we're going to have thematic group discussions that are even more substantial and hearty come next year.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think we're all really anxious to kind of get to the next step, but it feels like this is something like we will be talking to these people,
Yeah.
but we'll just have a lot more to say to them.
That's right. And with more impact and information. And again, we're excited, but people aren't going to want to talk to us every time we want to scratch our nose. Like, we have to be thoughtful and mindful. So I'm going to move on, if I may, to here consider and act on the 2021 meeting dates. Is there any discussion? I mean, I've listed the dates and I basically tried to keep to the first Tuesday, third Thursday, and just went through the calendar. Yeah, Doug.
In June, it looks like there's a 4-week gap though between first and second meeting.
In June, it's June 1st and the 29th. It's like a 3-week gap. And that was in part because graduation, and I was being realistic with the end of year calendar. It doesn't mean we won't be doing our own work, and we can front load at that June 1st meeting. We can throw big homework assignments at everybody. I just thought better to be realistic in terms of where we were at the end of the year, just because the dates are up the air with graduation and college stuff. I just didn't know. So I just thought, all right, let's build in a reprieve.
So the March, because there's 3 dates in March, there's only a week between the 30th and the 6th.
And I did that too, because I sort of was like, it's a midway point. And again, I thought to keep people on track, even if the meeting is a half an hour, it wasn't bad to.
Fine with that.
And I was looking at the calendar and just trying to say, okay, where are we with things? And I just thought.
Yep.
And in August, there's only one meeting. Again, same reason. I'll give people, try to be realistic with where we're at. If we have to call a special meeting, we can always do that. But I thought if we kind of front load homework on those days that we have fewer meetings, it might be. And I just wanted to be realistic with the summer and where people are. So if we can just in good faith say this is the meeting, and then if we have to either cancel or have special meetings, we can do that. But I just wanted to again, to use my favorite word of the night, build a blueprint of what a map, a schedule. Any other sort of glaring, if I've put something on a holiday that you celebrate, my intention was not to offend it. I tried to be mindful. So with that,
September, does anybody have an eye for that? I feel like that could come up in September. There's some Jewish holidays that
I did look at the Jewish holidays.
That's the only month that I'm always I'm not.
I did look there. I think I got it right.
You are a rock star.
Again, selfishly.
Have us on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Yep. And again, that becomes we're getting close to when we have to deliver something. So I thought 3 weeks, 3 times, let's not forego that. All right. So is there a motion to approve the meeting dates of 2021?
I can make that motion to approve
Karen,
the meeting.
thank you.
Yep.
Motion by Karen. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Steve Bogan. all in favor or any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any, Tamisha in favor?
Yes, aye.
Okay, any objections? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. We'll be spending a lot of time together. And who knows, maybe we get to start doing some of this in person.
Nancy, it's Sonia.
Yes.
Can I just make a request? Alex, can you ring me after we're done?
Sure.
Thank you.
And I'm going to argue that we've considered some new business, but is there anything anyone wants to add for now? Is everyone comfortable with their marching orders?
Yeah, so I just want to restate that we're going to have Lenasia Brevard from the FEC at the December 15th meeting to go over the survey that the youth survey
Perfect.
and their
So-
results.
Okay. So,
one more thing, Nancy.
yes,
Figure it out who's taking notes at the next meeting?
great call. Do we know? Would anyone like
I'm
to?
pretty sure it's me.
Douglas, okay. And then we'll wait till the first meeting of 2021 to assign note takers. I think if I could, I'm going to request that for the next meeting, December 15th, we just kind of plan to go a little bit longer than this hour 45 window that we've been hitting, because I just think with the website, with listening to Lenasia, who's quite amazing, there just may be a lot to tackle before the new year, because again, we don't meet until January 5th, and just want to make sure. So, and for those joining us for the first time, please come back and please dive in. Help us.
Also, Naomi, since you're a youth in town and I'm speaking to youth in town, would you like to be interviewed?
Sure.
Great. If you wanted to just send me your contact information through the chat, I'll get in touch with you.
Sure.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are you expecting, are we expected to have the synthesizing work done by that next meeting?
No.
No, just the info in. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll be, the goal is to send it to Sandra by that. I mean, I
By
guess
that-
the date technically is like the 16th, so there's some flexibility, but if we kind of aim to be done by the next meeting so that it's all in, so
Okay.
that you can report, we'll have a space at the next meeting where we can report on anything that was really like eye-opening, and and again, we're not only looking for the negative, like positive, anything that really sparked joy or was negative, anything. So you can also come prepared to talk about your findings that way.
Yeah, and I think the caveat will be, and we'll do this before we kind of present out, is remembering, always going back to the objective. How does what we heard inform our survey instrument? What types of questions do we need to ask to get the answers that will be most helpful for us, and things like that. So it's like deliberate listening to the findings from these deep listening interviews. Yes, because they're going to be interesting and informative, but also because we have to do something with what we've learned. So, but I'll bring that up again when we get to that point.
Which name should I send my contact information to?
Gina Ludlow.
Gina Ludlow.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, this gorgeous group, any last comments, questions? All right, do I have a motion? My favorite question. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion
Only
to adjourn.
tonight. Okay, Steve is motioning to adjourn. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, was that you, Sonia?
It was.
Okay, Sonia with the second. I think we all could use a little bit of a nap. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries, and I bid you all adieu. And I'll just keep this on so that Naomi, you can make sure you've reached out to Gina. Gina, do you have what you need? 1 second. Here I am. Thank you for taking notes, Alex.
Yep. Could I get Lanisha Brevard's correct spelling? I'm sure I butchered it.
Lynnaiija.
I have
BR.
Lynnnaija.
Yeah, Brevard, Brevard.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Gina, you good? 1 second. All right, we're good. All right, good night, all. Thank you.
Good night.